Hey guys, I'm Paul the Motor Guy. Now in this video, I'm gonna cover 6 mistakes I see riders make when doing the figure 8 exercise and how to fix them. So hang tight. Now I personally think that the figure 8 exercise is the bread and butter of all exercises, if done correctly. It allows you to work on the friction zone, throttle control, head turns and eye movement, counterweighting, and trail braking with the rear brake. Now the first mistake is riders tend to use too much speed or momentum. Now by doing this, you're not really working on the friction zone. To correct this, you want to slow the motorcycle down in between your turns. Now this will force you to use the friction zone to keep the motorcycle from falling and not momentum. My speed when doing slow speed maneuvers is around 8 to 10 miles an hour. Mistake number 2 is not being in the friction zone early enough. Now if a rider drops his bike during this exercise, it's usually as they're making their turns around the pivot cones. This is because the rider is not in the friction zone when the bike's leaned over. So prior to leaving the motorcycle, you need to already be in the friction zone. And I would recommend you staying in the friction zone the entire time while the motorcycle is leaned over. Now mistake number 3 is improper head turn and eye movement. Now I'm gonna go outside to explain this one. All right guys, so I have the figure 8 set up behind me. I have 2 pivot cones. I think they're about 25 feet apart because again, I want to have enough space in between so you can see me slowing the bike down in the later demo. But right now I'm going to talk about the improper head and eyes. This is what I see when it comes to this figure 8 exercise. And this is what I'm thinking that hurts some of you when it comes to this exercise. All right, so I'm going to start on this cone here like I'm making a left turn. So what I tend to see is that riders will come here and then they look down at this cone right here as they're going around this pivot cone. Now, you don't want to look down at that pivot cone. All it is a pivot cone. I don't want to look at it. For one, when you look down, you tend to ride the bike into the ground. Also, we tend to hear what we look at. So I do not want to look at that cone as I'm going around it, all right? Now, another thing I see riders do, if they don't look here, what they do is they look across to the far cone. But I don't look to that far cone either because I don't want to ride to that far cone, all right? Again, that's just a pivot cone. I don't want to ride to that cone, all right? So what you want to look for is the center of the figure 8. So no matter how far the cones are apart, no matter how close the cones are together, you always want to aim for the middle of the figure 8, at least in my opinion. So what it looks like is this. As I'm coming through here, as I get ready to make my turn now, turning my head, my eyes, chin is up, looking for the middle. Boom, hit my middle, slow it back down. Right about here, I turn, again, turn my head, turn my eyes, look for the middle. All right, so the way I like to do this is to look for the middle of the figure 8. All right, again, it doesn't matter how long, how far they are apart, how close you are together. You want to aim and look at the center of the figure 8. I want my front wheel to get as close to the center of the figure 8 as I can. And also by doing that, extra bonus is now you're working on wheel placement and all that good stuff as well. Getting the bike to go where you want it to go. You riding the bike and the bike not riding you. Mistake number 4 is that riders tend to have slow head turns, which makes for wide turns. Now this is because the handlebars will usually follow your head and your eyes. So a slow head turn equals a slow handlebar turn, and a quick head turn will equal a quicker handlebar turn. So your head turns need to be quick and precise, and you need to actively look where you want to go. Now mistake number 5 is leaning with the motorcycle. Instead of leaning with the motorcycle, you want to keep your eyes level with the horizon. And this will take away some of the sensation of falling. Because when we lean with the motorcycle, it changes the depth perception of the ground, and that spooks us. Now, mistake number 6 is not covering the rear brake when doing slow speed maneuvers. Now, riders tend to ride with their foot on the floorboards or on the foot pegs. Then when they feel like they need to slow down, they move it to the rear brake pedal, which looks like this. Now, there's 2 problems with this. The first problem is the time it takes you to move your foot from the floorboard or the foot peg to the rear brake pedal, the bike is taking up space. Now, the second problem is it can cause you to jam on the rear brake pedal when you need to slow down. So I recommend you cupping the rear brake pedal whenever you're doing any slow speed maneuvers. Now, first, I'm going to walk you through the exercise, and then I'm going to ride it for you. All right, so now I'm going to walk through this exercise before I ride it for you. And as I walk through, I'm going to talk to you and tell you what I'm doing and where I'm looking and all that kind of good stuff as I'm doing this exercise. All right, so let's say I'm riding down here. My first turn is going to be in this left cone over here, pivot cone. So I'm going to ride in. I'm in the friction zone. The bike already has power to the rear wheel prior to me leaning over. So if I already have power to the rear wheel, why even adjust my clutch as I'm making my turn? All I gotta do is turn my head, my eyes, and all the handlebars and all that good stuff, and the bike already has power. All right, so I'm coming in. I already have power to rear wheel. Right here, I'm turning my head, turning my eyes quickly, finding the middle. So here the bike's gonna lean over. I'm gonna counterweight a little bit to the high side if I like to. Boom, bring it up. Now from here, I need to slow the bike down. Remember, you want to slow the bike down in between. If not, you're just using momentum, and it's a false sense of the friction zone. You're not actually working on the friction zone, using momentum. So we have to slow the bike down in between to force you to use the friction zone. All right, so I'm slowing the bike down here with the rear brake. Here, I'm turning my head, turning my eyes quickly, looking for the center. Bike leaned over, counterweighting, have power to the rear wheel prior to me leaning this back over. Now in this exercise here, you can actually keep you can actually stay in the friction zone the whole time. You don't even ever have to put the clutch in if you don't want to. It makes it a lot easier. One less thing to think about. So again, I'm coming through, power to the rear wheel, turn my head, turn the bars, let the bike lean, power, 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 bring the bike up, slowing the bike down. Boom, turn my head, turn my eyes quickly, find the middle, bike is leaning over, counterweight a little bit, boom, find my center. Now you're just gonna repeat that over and over again. All right, so now let me go ride this thing for you. All that power to the wheel, turn my head, find the center, slow it down, turn my head, find the center, slow it down, turn my head, find the center. One more time, turn my head, find the center, just like that. Now, once you're able to complete this exercise at a certain distance, you want to start moving the pivot cones in closer because you always want to be challenging yourself. Now, until next time, you got it, guys. Practice, 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 and ride safe.